Home ownership declines. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee. Let's have a look at this release from the ABS. I don't think this is going to be surprising to any of us, but home ownership has declined. Now, home ownership here in Australia, it used to be a big, good equalizer. It's what allowed people to step up the social classes, to build wealth, to have security and stability, and to provide for future generations of their family. Used to be when you could raise a family, go on holidays, have a home, and maybe even a holiday home, all on one income. Now, I make the argument that sadly those times are past, and maybe Australia is maturing as a nation and becoming more like Europe. So we're going to have class divides reestablished, because the earlier, more exciting times where houses were available everywhere, dirt cheap, in some ways being artificially constrained because, supply of housing is limited, and people only want to seem to live in 3 cities or 4 cities where the jobs and opportunities are. So let's look at this. Let's have a look. Over half, 55% of millennials, 25 to 39-year-olds. What? So I'm not a millennial? Technically, I'm meant to be one. I'm a geriatric millennial then. Homeowners, compared with 62% of Gen X and 2/3, 66% of baby boomers when they were the same age. Okay, so that's a big drop. The boomers had it best, then Gen X, and then millennials. Analysis of census data from 91, 2006, and 2021 showed that home ownership, including homes owned outright or with a mortgage, for those aged between 25 and 39, has decreased in each successive generation. The 25 to 39-year-old baby boomers in 91 were 3 times more likely than the 25 to 39-year-old millennials in 2021 to own their home outright. The ABS compared the characteristics of millennials, the 25 to 39-year age cohort in the 2021 census, with the characteristics of Gen X and baby boomers when they were the same age, using data from the 2006 and 91 census. Duncan Young, general manager of Census, said, "Generations are social groups born within a specific time period and sharing life experiences, significant events, and culture. Baby boomers were born in the aftermath of the Second World War and were young adults through Australia's recession in the early 1990s. In contrast, Generation X were born during a time when birth rates were lower in the late 60s and 70s. They entered adulthood as Facebook launched. Millennials were born in the 80s and 90s and experienced early adulthood as smartphones and tablets became household items. Every dinner table in Australia has heard someone reflect on how things were different back in my day." New analysis published today by the ABS uses 3 censuses to explore what was different and also what is the same for boomers, Gen X, and millennials. The ABS analysis compares the generations in terms of living arrangements, study qualifications, participation in the labour force, working conditions, income, and housing. Participation in the labour force was similar for millennials, Gen X, and boomers, at around 4 in 5 employed or looking for work when they were 25 to 39 years old. For females, millennials were more likely than earlier generations to be in the labour force at 76% compared to Gen X at 69% and boomers at 66%. Now, is that through choice or out of necessity, particularly if you're trying to save to own a home? Millennials are the most qualified generation at 25 to 39 years of age, with a greater proportion of millennials having a non-school qualification, a certificate, diploma, or degree than earlier generations. That's not surprising. Education it's accessible nowadays compared to in the past. What's going to be really exciting, frankly, it's to see the next generation and what can evolve in education. There needs to be new opportunities. Remove the stranglehold the universities have on qualification. But anyway, I'm going off topic. Over 3/4 of millennials, 79%, have a qualification compared with under 2/3 of Generation X and less than half of boomers at 48%. Higher education qualifications were more likely for millennials, with 40% having a bachelor degree or higher, compared with almost 25% of Gen X and only 12% of boomers that had a degree at the same age. Now, I want to add a thing to this because my own degree, I have 2 bachelors. I've got a Bachelor of Built Environment and Architectural Studies, which is a 3-year degree, and a Bachelor of Architecture. And the Bachelor of Architecture is the the professional qualification I needed to become an architect, to sit my registration exams and pass my interviews and all of that. Now, it's changed. What's happened is you need to have a master's. Now they get a Bachelor of Architecture and then they do a Master's of Architecture. This is degree inflation. The quality of the education, I would argue, is no better than what I received. Certainly, I know the theses that they were doing at university, at QUT, they're no different to what we had to do. If anything, they're a little smaller than what we had to do. And I know for a fact that the tutorial time the students got was less than what we got. But the fees the university can get for a master's, well, it's a little higher than a bachelor. Just putting it out there. So I wouldn't necessarily think that a higher qualification means you've had a better education. I mean, maybe a high school education back in the 60s for the boomer times, could that be equivalent to what we're getting in a first-year uni? Over half of millennials have never been married. Oh boy, 53%, compared with 26% of boomers at the same age. Compared with earlier generations, millennials married at an older age. Half of baby boomers were married at 27, compared to 32% for Gen X and 34% for millennials. Now, this is a concerning thing, the older you get married, because if you want to start a family, you don't want to leave it too late. This is the harsh reality of biology. You've got limited time to, particularly for the ladies, limited time to have a kid. Okay? Keep that in mind. Every year after 30, it gets harder. And it shouldn't cost you money to have a child. You shouldn't need to, normally for most people, you shouldn't have to spend money to have a kid. It should be something that just happens. Trust me, we've done it a couple of times. The most common living arrangement for millennials is living in a couple household with no children, 36%, which is twice the rate of Gen X at 18% when they were 25 to 39 years old. 1 in 5 millennials, 21%, are living with a partner and children, compared to more than half of boomers at 52% at the same age. So some interesting insight here into the differences between the generations. Let's have a talk about this. I think the most concerning issue here is the one that will not surprise anyone, but the decline in home ownership between the generations. It just means there's going to be less time for people to build up their retirement buffers, less time for people to, reap the benefits of increasing housing costs, and less time for people to be established and remain in a place. Maybe that's not what the generations want anymore. Maybe I'm really not a millennial, guys. What do you think? Hopefully, it's not gonna change. It's just gonna get worse. It's just, even if there's a correction in property, it'll still bounce back. There's still going to be pressure and demand, which will inflate the costs of housing, and it's going to be tougher and tougher for future generations to get in. Maybe it is Australia slowly evolving to be more like Europe, where you've got a class of people, the generations, where they've never owned a house. Maybe that's the path Australia's heading. I hope not. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one. Do you think we can reverse it? Will the younger generations be able to own a house? Check out my other channels, HeiseBim and HeiseSays International, for other topics I discuss. And if you're a fan and want to support us, you can financially on YouTube or Patreon, using our referral links, buying our pocket squares, or calling us if you need an architect. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. And, millennials, rush out and buy a house. Or if you're a geriatric millennial like me, I think that's what it is. We're slightly older. We're cooler than normal millennials. That's it.